took a train, a plane, and a taxi to arrive here in Hong Kong. And in fact, to come to Hong Kong has been a dream of mine since I was about 7 years old. I guess I was probably around this height. But you may be thinking, well, where did you come from? What was the origin of your journey? Where did you travel from? And I think that's a good place to start. Now you may be thinking, listening to me, that I may have travelled from London, in the UK. But actually I haven't. I have actually travelled from Sweden, a very beautiful country, and here is the flag behind me. And in fact, I come from a little town in Sweden that looks a bit like this. It's got a beautiful bridge, it's got a really nice river, the beaches are gorgeous, the population around 40,000. It's very, very different to the hustle and bustle and the lively vibe of Hong Kong. But one of the things I like about the place that I live is the name. And the name is Falkenberg. Now something really interesting happens when you take this name, Falkenberg, and you actually split it in two. Sometimes when you take a kind of key component, or if you want data, and you split it in two, it becomes a little bit more useful, a little bit more cooler. And in this case with Falkenberg, it becomes Falcon Mountain. So I like to tell people who live in England or other countries that I actually travelled from Falcon Mountain. It just sounds much cooler. But anyway, my journey started from Falcon Mountain, and I decided to book a flight. And the flight company that I travelled with was British Airways. So I went on the website, I filled out my name, my address, my passport details, my date of birth, all the other information. And something interesting started to happen. I started to get information sent to me in regards to my journey. I started getting SMSs saying you have 5 days until you travel. I started to get emails saying that you are 2 days until you travel, you should check in now. So I checked in, and it assigned me a seat. And the seat that it gave me was an aisle seat, and I thought, well, this is fantastic. I'm not really the tallest guy. I'm going to Hong Kong. I'm a little bit taller than I was when I was 7, but at least I can stretch my legs. So I thought, it's given me that seat. I don't need to think about it in too much detail. But something interesting happened in terms of the journey that I went on. I'm very connected in what I do digitally, so I tend to share the information with a lot of parties. And I started getting information in regards to my trip to Hong Kong. What was the weather like? What was the currency exchange between the Hong Kong dollar and the Swedish krona? How do you say hello? How do you say thank you? I'll attempt that now. Ngoi. Probably completely incorrect. But it started to set me up in terms of the journey that I was going on. It made sense that I was going to Hong Kong and I would need these things to help me. The places to eat, the things to do, etc. What was interesting is that when I landed in Hong Kong, the first thing you do when you're in the plane is you take it off the flight mode, and everyone's phone starts beeping. Everyone's getting a text message. And the text message that I got is right here, and it's in Swedish, but I can translate some of it for you. And it basically says, "Welcome to Hong Kong. Here is how much it's going to cost you if you want to go on the internet and send text messages, if you want to use your phone." But then I thought, okay, I'm connected. I've got 3G or 4G on my phone. I'm going to book an Uber. So I said to my watch, I'm going to activate it now, but I said, hey, get me to this destination, get me to where I need to go to. And what was really interesting is that my watch, or Uber, went out and understood where I was at that particular moment in time, and then figured out where the local drivers were, and then actually worked out how to get me to my destination and allow them to pick up their next ride in a very efficient way. So I did this automatically. I just said, hey, get me here, and the rest was done for me. So anyway, I get in the car, and the car that turns up really surprises me. It's actually one of my favourite cars. It's actually a Tesla. Not only is it electric, but they look cool, and it does some pretty funky things. So I said to the guy, can you do that autopilot? Can you get the car to drive itself? He said, yeah, of course I can. So he clicks the button twice, takes his hand off the wheel, and the car is driving itself. And I'm in heaven. I'm thinking, do you know what? I've come to Hong Kong, and everything is in the future. So I step out of the Uber, step out of the Tesla, close the door, my wrist beeps, my phone beeps, and I get an email. And the email says, here's how long your trip was. You rode with a guy called Tony. All my information was there. It made sense. I wanted my receipt. Our CFO will want to see my receipts when I get back from Hong Kong so you can approve them. So this is proof, so to speak. But then I thought a bit deeper. I thought, how many people come to Hong Kong every year? And it really surprised me. As of the 2017 statistics, 60 million visitors descend on this city, either through business or pleasure, mixture of the two. 60 million people a year come here. And that number is insane. And I thought, how many people are having these journeys like I have? How many people have come from their Falcon Mountains? How many people have put their details, their information in, and received SMSs, had a car pick them up, had a receipt sent to them, had a seat chosen for them for the aeroplane they're about to fly on? And all of this is marketing automation. Maybe thinking, is that really marketing automation? I say, yes, it is. Marketing automation isn't always about buy my thing, or free shipping now, or you must engage with my brand. Marketing automation is actually about helping someone in that moment get to the next logical step of their journey from where they are already. And in fact, marketing automation, as Winnie said when she introduced today's seminar, can often be seen as a buzzword. And you may be thinking to yourself now, well, is it marketing automation just a buzzword? Well, I'm grateful that you've come here today because I want to dispel that myth. No, it's not. But before we get too deep into that, I want to make sure that you understand that marketing automation doesn't have to be a heavy lifting. It doesn't need to be difficult. It shouldn't cost millions upon millions of Hong Kong dollars. It shouldn't cost months and months of time. It should be effective. It should make sense. And it should be relevant. But in terms of marketing automation, I want to give you an example which will make a little bit more sense in terms of the journey that we're about to go on together through this presentation. I can tell you, if I'm in London, I can say, get me to Ibiza, a typically known party island off the coast of Spain. I can say, get me to Ibiza. And you can say, okay, well, there's a couple of ways we can get you there. We can get you there via car. It's going to take pretty much a whole day of driving. You're going to be very tired at the end. You're going to go through France, a little bit of Spain, and you're going to end up in Ibiza. And you can say, well, is there another way to get there? Is there another way to get to Ibiza from London? Well, of course there is. You can fly. It'll cost around £71, about 800 Hong Kong dollars. It'll take 2.5 hours to get there, and it seems a bit more straightforward. And I can say to you, cool, I understand that I can drive there, I can fly there, but can I take the train there? Can I get on public transport and navigate my way to Ibiza? Do I have this choice? And the answer is no, quite sadly. But in all seriousness, if you think about your business, are you in silos? In fact, the definition of a silo is when different departments within an organization think they're going towards the common goal, but they're going a different route. And with the example that I just showed of get me to Ibiza, are you guys the car? Are you the plane? Or are you the train that's never going to get there? You may want to think about that for a bit in terms of where your business is. But here's the thing, and here's why you're here today. You guys are marketeers. You're in the middle. You are quite simply responsible for a lot of things. How the brand grows, what the engagement's like, how you increase sales, how you increase audience. That depends on you. You have to be creative. And what I'll say with this is, use that to your advantage. Coordinate your business to make sure that your silo is broken down. Your Falcon Burger becomes a Falcon Mountain, perhaps, and you start to do something a bit more interesting. But let's stand by for a bit, because I want to share 2 examples with you. In fact, at Apsis, we actually believe in automation. It's a mindset that we've got ourselves in the past few years. And as you can see behind me, it's another Tesla example, but there are machines building cars. And I often think when I look at this, who built the machines? Imagine just machines building machines that are building the cars, and the cars are then driving themselves. I mean, it's insane. But in all seriousness, on the subject of cars, we're lucky enough in Sweden to have the brand of Volvo as a customer. And Volvo realized that not everybody wants to buy a car. Not everyone wants that expense of having a car, parking the car, insuring the car, putting petrol in the car, maintenance of the car, and the many other things that go with it. But they realized there's a gap in the market that they could capitalize on by forming a sub-brand. And that sub-brand is actually underneath the Volvo logo there, and they're called Sunfleet. Now, Sunfleet is a brand that specializes in connecting people with cars wherever they are and wherever they want to get to, without any of the costs of petrol, insurance, parking, you name it. And here's what happens. You rock up in a town, maybe you haven't rented a car, you think, where's my car? I want to get a car, you get your app out, it locates where you are, it finds your nearest car, it gives you a code, you walk up to it, you punch the code in, and ta-da, your keys are presented to you. You drive along, you have your merry adventure, maybe for a day or two, you park the car, you walk away. And through automation, they're able to connect people to the cars, to their destination, It's almost like a self-driven Uber. You know, you choose where to go, and the car is presented to you. But what's really interesting when you talk about connecting people is actually about relevancy. And we say here at Access that relevancy matters. And again, if you think back to the example that I gave you, how I took a train, a plane, and a taxi to get here into Hong Kong, I was presented with a lot of relevancy on my way, on my journey. And in terms of relevancy, 80% of your business revenue tends to come from 20% of your customer base. And you may be thinking, well, what the heck are the other 80% of my customers doing? And how do I get them to become part of the 20%? How do I grow my audience? And how do I engage them in a richer way? And the answer is relevancy. Now, when it comes to relevancy and automation, they do go hand in hand. And a lot of people say, well, what do I make automated first? And that's not maybe the voice they use, but they ask that question, what do I automate first? And there's some examples behind me that you can use. But there's actually some that I'd maybe like to share with you today. We actually have a customer that does this. They've realized that everyone's birthday they have tends to fall on the same day every single year, unless you're born on the 29th of April. So the same day every year, you have your birthday. And they worked out that people were receiving a lot of information on their birthday saying, happy birthday, free shipping, happy birthday, here's a gift, happy birthday, buy my thing. And they realized that maybe they didn't want to speak to their customer on that day, even they knew it was their birthday. So what they decided to do was to actually miss their birthday. They decided to wait for the day after and actually send an email and say, hey, we're really sorry we missed your birthday. We want to make it up to you. And again, remember when I told you the marketeers are in the center of things? You are the glue that brings the brand forward to your customer in terms of making sense. Sometimes you need to be creative. Sometimes you need to stick out the right way to do the thing that makes most sense. But it has to be a mindset. You know, what is the strategy that you have in your business? One of my favorite client interactions that I ever had was they said, we don't care about your tech, but we want you to care about our story. We want to share with you where we want to take our customer and what we want the experience to be, and we want you to build it. We don't care about the tech, just help us build this realization, this vision that we have. But that was their strategy, that was their mindset. That's all they thought about. How does the customer get interacted with? How do we speak to them at the right time? How do we give them the right message? How do we move them along in their journey? But you have to use your data. You have to use the data that you have today. And I promise you, there's no business out there that goes, oh my God, I've got no data, where do I even start? No, you've got too much of it. But it's everywhere. And it tends to be in these silos. So I would say as a marketeer, get your mindset on the strategy of what you want to do for automation. And actually use that in the right way. Break down those silos. I want to give an example for Fitbox. In fact, they're a client of ours, and they had two particular problems that they were struggling with, and they came to Access. And the two problems were that they'd managed to reach out through various media channels and get people to visit their website. But once people were visiting the website and the traffic went up, they couldn't get them to convert. They couldn't get them to turn into a sale. They couldn't get the visit to actually turn into a customer. The second problem they had was that they wanted to do things all in one place. They wanted to connect the journey in a meaningful way without having to bring together too many sources. They simply wanted it to work. And I mean, I can tell you about how effective it was, but I think actually it's more relevant if we actually allow the customer to share it. And we've got a video from a gentleman called Jason Baskaran who will actually share with you what their journey was and where they got to.
Fitbox 係一個香港嘅零售商啦，主要經營健身器材同埋美容器材嘅。咁我哋自己 Fitbox 有8間專門店啦，咁另外有一個購物網站啦，同埋我哋嘅產品咧都會分銷去可能出邊 Broadway 啊、豐澤啊、莎莎啊、Jason 呢啲咁嘅零售商嘅。對我哋嚟講啦，即係始終都係零售商啦，都係希望 keep 住揾一啲適合嘅產品，無論係家用嘅健身器材或者係美容器材，都想 keep 住可以揾到多啲嘅俾我哋香港嘅顧客啦。而家我諗個問題主要都係話資訊太多啦，即係以往我哋做廣告可能喺電視或者報紙雜誌咧落廣告其實已經好足夠嘅，咁但係因為而家多咗好多網上嘅平台，咁令到可能嗰個資訊嘅接收咧非常之零散。對我哋嚟講就係點樣可以發放資訊俾最適合嘅客戶咯，即係譬如話可能我哋有啲產品係 for 銀髮族為主嘅，我哋可以點樣去 target 到銀髮族呢？有啲產品可能係後生仔為主嘅，我哋又點樣透過最多人用嗰啲社交平台發放俾佢哋咯？咁呢個係而家我哋最重視嗰個目標嚟。其實我哋用 Apps 嘅原因呢，一路都係想將一啲目標客戶呢轉變成我哋顧客，但係其實呢個並唔係一件容易嘅事嚟嘅，即係好多人呢都會忽略咗一啲可能電郵嘅廣告嘅重要性啦。咁呢一 part 咧 Apps 可以幫到我哋將我哋最適合嘅廣告或者我哋產品資訊咧發放俾我哋針對嘅客戶咯。首先咧 Apps 會將我哋一啲瀏覽我哋網站嘅訪客啦，能夠將佢哋變成客戶啦，呢個係其一啦。第二點咧就係話每逢有一啲客，可能佢哋擺咗一啲想買嘅產品落 shopping cart，但係有啲原因可能佢哋冇 check out 嘅，冇買到嘅，或者可能放低咗嘅。咁 Apps 可以有一個自動化嘅系統幫我哋聯絡翻啲客戶啦，提醒佢哋仲有嘢未買啦。咁仲有一個比較貼心嘅功能咧，就係話當一啲 email 個客戶收到呢啲提醒 email 嘅時候咧，佢一撳落去咧，其實佢會自動將之前個客擺咗落購物車入邊嘅產品咧，完全顯現翻出嚟嘅。咁其實都係可以方便翻個客戶記得翻自己之前揀嗰啲咩產品。其實個成效咧係好犀利嘅，我哋自己都估唔到咧喺2個月內咧已經有咁高嘅回報率啦。咁主要分2點啦，第一點咧就係有11%最終冇 check out 到嘅客戶咧，都係經過 Apps 嘅 email 提醒咧嚟翻我哋個網站度購物嘅。另外第二點咧就係話總銷售額嚟計咧，有12% 嘅銷售額咧都係透過 Apps 嘅 solution 咧去帶翻俾我哋咯。
As we say in English, the proof is in the pudding, and ultimately the results should speak for themselves. And I think what was interesting, as Jason said in his conversation there, was that Apps was driving 12% of the revenue. So 12% of the business they brought in was powered by using this particular tool. What is also quite interesting is he said there, 11% of customers that had abandoned their purchase, they managed to bring them back in, they managed to fish them in with relevancy that mattered. Hey, you've left these in your basket, buy them before they sell out, buy them before they're out of stock. 11% actually came back. It's a tangible return. But even more than that was that the customers who did return ended up spending 2.3 times as much. I think that's quite interesting. They managed to reach out to a customer, give them value to say, hey, this is going to help you. And that customer ended up spending more with them. But the part that I like the absolute most, and I think as a marketeer, we should think about this with everything that we do, is this. Within 2 months, they had got their return on their investment. Within 2 months, they paid for their investment. And I hear a lot of customers say, I don't have the budget for that. Or I can't afford that, it's too much of a cost. But I think if you get yourself into the mindset of what you're here to do, you're here to grow the business, you're here to bring in the money. It's just an investment. I'm going to turn this coin into this much coin. So if you can think as a business that the strategy that you have in place and the vision that you want to give your customer in terms of their experience, if you can monetize that, if you can turn that into an actual return, it becomes a very compelling proposition. In fact, I don't have budget or that's a cost should never be a thing that's an obstacle to you. But if we zoom out a little bit more from an Apps perspective, we're in a really unique position in the fact that we have just over 6,000 customers using our platform. And what's really interesting is that close to 10 billion emails are sent a year through Apps. 10 billion emails. What makes me a little bit sad is if we're in this kind of buzzword world of marketing automation, is that only 2 million of them are sent through automation. So 10 billion are sent through buy my thing, free shipping, you've got to engage with my brand, or I have this product this week, versus 2 million that are meaningful and relevant at the right time. But in fact, it actually gets a bit more interesting when you look into the statistics. In fact, I want to share that with you here. The opening rate for automated emails is 180% higher than that of a bulk message. The click-through rate is 330% higher than that of a bulk message. And ultimately, the reason is relevancy. And let's just kind of chew on those numbers for a little bit and go back to Fitbox. 11% revenues driven through access, 11% recovered abandoned baskets. Those people ended up spending 2.3 times as much. Open rates, 180% higher. Click-through rates, 330% higher. When you automate, when you are relevant, when you are timely. And just for a moment, after you've chewed on those numbers for just a second, split it down the middle, divide it in two, and just think if you could take that back to your business and say, hey, by the way, I'm going to boost our open rate, or our recovery rate, or our click-through rate, or our upsell rate by just half those numbers, you'd be a hero. But let's move on. Let's get a little bit faster. And we've done our bit about the examples of customers using our tool. I want you to look at this for a second. As a marketer, you may think, my goodness, look at all those red cherries. I need to go and speak to those red cherries. I'm going to sell those red cherries something this week. But what if I told you that that blue cherry right there is worth 3 times as much as all those red cherries put together? You'd probably say, well, actually, I want to go after that blue cherry. From this perspective, I think it's very important that not only are you relevant, but you're targeted, you're very focused in terms of the group or the person or the individual that you want to speak to. In fact, if we want to get on the subject of speaking to an individual, you may say, well, actually, my segment or my demographic for this week is a guy. Cool. And it's a guy who lives in California in the US. And it's a guy that has glasses. And it's a guy that is over 50. That is my demographic. I want to speak to someone who's a male, lives in the state of California, wears glasses, and is over 50. That's my demographic. I'm going to speak to them, and these are the people that you are speaking to. One bites the heads off of bats, and the other one is a philanthropist. The one on the left is an ex-rock star, and the other guy is a tech guru. And you may be thinking to yourself, but my demographics were perfect. No, your demographics were just the surface. That was just your top layer. These two individuals are very, very different. And when you think about that, and this is an extreme example, when you think about that, you may want to say, was I looking at the customer in the right way? And people's journeys do change from where they are or what they do or what they're interested in. And you've got to make sure that you are comparing apples with oranges. But what I'm getting at here is that sometimes you need to go beyond the demographics and you need to get into the sociographics. And listen, or wants, or how they behave. And I'll give you a classic example actually. I'm a 30 plus something guy. I live on the west coast of Sweden, but I buy jewelry, high heels, dresses, and makeup. My demographic says you should never sell that to me, but I like buying it online. It's not for me, I will add, but still my sociographic says that I would be perfect to speak to, but I have no business that is daring enough to do that just yet. You've got to break down your silos. You've got to use your data in the right way to form a relevant message at the right time. I'll give you another example. In fact, it was literally a year ago to the day I did a presentation a little bit similar to this. It was actually on customer experience, but I did it for Apsis. And at the end, because we all have an ego and we want to share on LinkedIn or whatever social network we choose, I said what a great honor it was to present. And what was really interesting is that I had 74 people that liked it, and I had 18 comments. And I thought, do you know what? I've got 500 people that follow me or I'm connected with on LinkedIn. I'll take that. That's a 20% engagement rate, that's fine. But then when I looked deeper, I thought, something is weird there. 6,549 people viewed my post. I thought, this doesn't make sense. I've got 500 people that I'm connected with. I had a roughly 20% engagement rate, but almost 7,000 people viewed my post. 6,549 people. 6,549 people. Really? I looked into it in a bit more detail, because remember I said I'm a geek and I like to have tech and understand what's going on. What was interesting is that I realized that when you like or when you comment on something, that post will often be put into your other connections feeds. So what actually happened was that I had people that were looking at my post who really didn't care. And the numbers there said that I had views, but the engagement told the other story. So again, if we think about your brand, you may say, oh, I spoke to 1 million people. Cool, but did anyone pay attention? Or are you going after that blue cherry? Are you looking at demographics or are you looking at sociographics? The other important thing to bear in mind when you're engaging with a customer is where they've come from. What they've actually decided to do to interact with you. Have they started off on Instagram, a marketing platform, say marketing platform, it is a marketing platform where people are inspired by images and they get to your website and it's just a wall of text? Or do they come from YouTube and they're greeted with a wall of text? How do you speak to them at the right time, the right place? Have they gone into a shop to buy something, then they ring your telephone service, and they buy something online, then they email? How do you respect the journey, make sure that the experience they receive reflects your brand? I'll give you two examples. You go into McDonald's, you do it in Hong Kong, it's the same as doing it in LA, it's the same as doing it in Munich. It's a McDonald's. You order your burger, you pay for it, you're out within 5 minutes, done. You go to an Apple store, in fact I visited the one today in the financial district, you go to an Apple store, and the experience is exactly the same. Beautiful stores, great experience, doesn't matter where you are in the world, it's the same. But think about your brand, and when you own it, how do you make sure the experience that they have, from whichever angle they've come in, feels the same way about your brand? And the image I have behind me is actually a clock. And I like to do this example with customers when I first meet them. I say, imagine a clock, and you can actually do it right here and now. Use the power of imagination, we imagine a clock. Now you've imagined your clock, I then say, grab a piece of paper, and grab a pen. And you've got 10 seconds. You've got 10 seconds to draw the best clock you can. And the results are always the same. It's a circle, maybe 12, 3, 6, and 9, hands if you're lucky, and it's a clock that looks like a 3-year-old drew. But anyway, I say, game is over, time is up. That is your end product, you're going to live with it. But I say, turn it over. You've got a minute. You've got 6 times the amount of time you originally had to draw your clock. But something interesting happens. The clock becomes beautiful. It has to have all the numbers, it's got the little indentations, it's maybe got the second hand, it's got a little crown, it's got some shading. It's a much better image than a 10-second clock. And let's zoom out a bit. From a marketing perspective, what is your 10-second clock and what is your minute clock? What are the things you're pushing out the door? Because you've got to get your campaign out because it's a Tuesday or it's a Wednesday, whatever day it is you do your campaign. And what are the things you spend time on, thinking about, making beautiful? And we like to call this at Apsis, think, create, think. And with marketing automation, you can do that. You can think of what your vision is going to be or what your customer journey is going to be. You create it, you put it in place, and every time a customer behaves in line with that journey, their experience will be the same. And as a marketeer, you can go off and think of the next brilliant thing. But make sure you're comparing apples with oranges. Make sure the audience you speak to is the same. And on the subject of apples, in 1686, Sir Isaac Newton was sitting under a tree, and an apple fell from the tree, and he discovered gravity. And I'll say he discovered gravity, he actually just described it. And he said, gravity is 2 forces acting upon each other that have an equal and an opposite reaction. And what's quite interesting in the image behind me, you have 2 people that are running towards each other with balls, full of energy, and there is an equal and an opposite reaction. The girl, unfortunately, is in a maybe worse situation, but still, they collide. But again, as a marketeer, how many times are your customers running into you with their inflatable ball and they're bouncing off of you? How many times are you able to impact that relationship and say, hey, I've got you, I'm listening to you, I'm going to interact with you with value? Things take time. It doesn't have to be heavy lifting. It doesn't need to take months and months. But I'd encourage you to spend more than 10 seconds on your clock. Spend a minute. Make it beautiful. But when you do this, you'll see that your business blossoms. You'll see that the output or the effect is far greater than it could have been when you do things manually. But something really interesting happens when customers automate. As you've seen with the example with Fitbox, as you've seen through the results that we've had as a high level with Apsis, your business grows. People engage. People interact because it makes sense. But more than making sense, it's relevant. And more than relevancy, they're at the middle. And when the customer is in the middle and the journey is happening to them, a bit like when I got off the plane and got my SMS, and then I booked my Uber, and then I got my receipt, I received interactions that absolutely made sense to me. And I would actually say this, they gave me value. They didn't have to sell to me, they gave me an experience. And with that experience, I know that I'll go back again and again and again. Remember what I said about silos? Remember the example that I gave you earlier on? I said when you break things down, you split them apart, and you use the things that you have, sometimes they can be cooler than they are originally. Falcon Mountain. What is your Falcon Mountain? I'd encourage you to leave here today, find your Falcon Mountain, ask your account manager how you get your return on investment within 2 months, and ask them, how do I automate to think, create, and think? With that, my name is Jason Baskaran. Thank you very much. I'd love to answer your questions.